As an early Christmas present for Rinat Fakhretdinov, the UFC has decided to cut him from the promotion. Fighters get cut all the time, so why is this one stirring up so much discourse over the internet? Well, Rinat has a record of 24 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw, and hasn't lost a fight since I was about 6 years old. So he hasn't lost a single fight in the UFC. Granted, he did have a draw against Izileo Zaleski dos Santos, or ZDS is easier to say, who's a UFC veteran who also just got cut actually, which makes sense because he got knocked out 2 times in a row, and he's almost 40 years old. Rinat, on the other hand, was riding a 3-fight win streak before and after the draw. So that begs the question, why did he get cut? Well, the word cut here is sort of just for dramatic effect. When a fighter gets signed to the UFC, they get a contract of X amount of fights, and once they fight out that contract, they can negotiate a new one with more fights and more pay per fight, because the starting pay is $12,000 to make weight and another $12,000 to win the fight, which if you ask me is pretty ludicrously low for the best promotion in the world. But that's a conversation for another day. As I was saying, Rinat's contract was up and the UFC just chose not to resign him. You usually don't get signed if your last fight was a bad performance or if you're on a losing streak, but Rinat wasn't. His last fight was the biggest knockout victory of his career, in which he absolutely starched rising prospect Andreas Gustafsson in under a minute, by the way, which he, by the way, did not get a performance bonus for, which was surprising. Look, the best argument you can make for cutting him is that his other fights in the UFC weren't that entertaining. He had the aforementioned draw, and he won an absolute daylight robbery against Carlos Leal. So from that point of view, I can see an argument why he got cut. But still, Rinat isn't even close to the top 20 most boring fighters in the UFC. So that begs the question, was there something else at play? The UFC prides itself on having the best fighters in the world, unless Dana White or the matchmakers just don't like you. No, seriously, this has happened time and time again. Francis Ngannou, who was at the time the best heavyweight in the world, left the UFC because Dana White just didn't like him and found him difficult to work with. And he claims that Francis always asked to be paid more money for his fights.
I didn't like Francis as a person. Wasn't a guy I wanted to do business with. My boys were telling me he's misunderstood, and I told them, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them. Yeah, it wasn't about him becoming the heavyweight champion of the world. Francis isn't a good guy. He plays the good guy. I don't understand the language, and so he seems like he's a nice guy. He's not, and he's just not a guy that I wanted to be in business with. Period. End of story. Whether he became the champion or not.
And I assume you don't want to be in business with him ever again, but...
We won't be. We'll never be in business together.
Greatest flyweight of all time, Mighty Mouse, got traded to one championship because he wasn't happy with how little he was getting paid for being a reigning defending champion. Also, Brian Battle, whom Rinat actually has a win over, got cut for missing weight. Well, missing weight multiple times. The last straw was actually when he missed weight after moving up a division because they forced him to, so that you can kind of understand. So basically I'm saying if the UFC finds you difficult to work with, they could just cut you at will. And most recently, mokaev, who similarly to Rinat is also a bald Russian guy with a beard who went undefeated in the UFC, got cut under extremely similar circumstances. He was on a big win streak, probably 2 or 3 wins away from a title shot, and then he got an absolute slog of a fight against Manel Kape, which he still won, by the way, and then he got cut. And now Manel Kape knocked out 2 people after that fight and is now in line for a title shot, even though he lost that fight against mokaev.
Yeah, the matchmakers aren't big fans of his for many different reasons, and not just there's a lot of people who shoot takedowns in this business. A lot of guys that fight with that type of style, but it's a lot more than just that.
But would you be interested in keeping him around in the fall?
I think the PFL is going to get a great undefeated guy.
So it's not ridiculous to say that mokaev probably would have been a champion by now. And what did Dana White say as to why he got cut? He said the matchmakers didn't like him and that he was difficult to work with. Since mokaev is young and still killing it in other promotions, his career will probably be fine. Maybe he'll even claw his way back into the UFC. But even if you weren't a fan of Fakhretdinov's, you still can't help but feel bad for the guy, because he's 34 years old, not in the UFC now, and he's getting to that age where in combat sports your body starts declining. So his career could be in trouble because he only has a few more years until he's considered an old fighter, meaning he probably is never going to make it back to the UFC. And for what? Being a boring fighter that turned his image around by getting an insane knockout? He got cut for that? It's a little ridiculous. Let me know in the comments what are some other fighters that got shafted by their promotion and had their potential ruined. Follow me for more UFC news, and hopefully the topic for the next video is a little more uplifting.